The national debt has surpassed $31 trillion. That is with a T. You know, I remember all the way back when 20 trillion was the end of the world, and now we've got to 31, and oh, it's okay. We'll just do MMT and we'll pay it all off anyway, but we'll be talking about that, what that means, and where we go from there. Russia is mobilizing what could be a unit that handles nuclear weapons, although it is unclear whether or not they're actually mobilizing nuclear weapons themselves, while North Korea fires rockets and the US and South Korea try to retaliate and have one blow up on the launch pad. So we'll be talking about that. It's actually probably going to be the brunt of the news day today, but we'll go over some of that and where we go with that. The Hill reports that the GOP is seizing on Biden gaffes to attack his competence, showing an absolute and complete, lack of self-awareness given the fact of what happened for the last 5 years. And we are being told something that we've known for a long time, that Velma from Scooby-Doo is openly homosexual. It is going to be all this and more. There's just too much stupid for a tagline. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Oh boy, what a day, what a day, what a day. I do think they're trying to plunge us into a war at this point. I really do. And I put the tweet out and people thought it was cryptic, but a lot of you who've watched me play the video game series with Fallout know what I was talking about. And when all this goes down, I hope I get ghoulified. I want to spend the rest of eternity being healed by the little pockets of radiation that are all around the world after they completely glass the entire world, and calling everybody that gets on my nerves smooth skin. Everybody who managed to survive anyway. So I'm thinking that it's going to be imminent here, but if a local businessman around your area starts wanting to buy up a bunch of land and dig a bunch of stuff underground, do keep in mind that they did a lot of experiments with people in those places, so you actually might be better off just dying when the fallout comes, rather than being stuck in a vault as the sole male with 100 females, or worse, in a vault with 100 other dudes and only one female. But we can sit and talk Fallout, or we can talk about real world Fallout that seems to be coming to a head right now over here on Contemporary. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the foreign situation, some of the local stuff, the national debt. That was a big one off of this. Biden actually getting his butt handed to him for his stupidity by trying to make a Mean Girls tweet. There's so much tone deaf going on right now, it's not even funny. And that's part of the reason I do what I do. Because these people think that they can just get away with and say whatever they want in a tone deaf fashion, when they've never had to deal with some of the things that you and I have had to deal with. Whereas I can sit here in front of a microphone with a light in front of me and using my kitchen light as a studio light because, well, I'm poor, and talk about some of the same decisions that some of you guys have had to make throughout your lives. And make some of the same decisions myself. So that's what we do. And we've got a slate of other people who do the same kind of thing. Go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, KTZed, a PJ Patriot, Mr. Behavior, and the No Gimmicks podcast. All great people whose sole desire is to bring you news by the common man for the common man. So go and check all that out. It's going to be an awesome time. And let's take some time and get into the news and the finance for the day. get some live chat up here so I can see what you guys are doing. And by the way, oh, do we have a new follower? Looks like in the live chat we've got a new follower. I see followage. I don't know. Anyway, let's get started. Let's do some of this. And if, by the way, if you guys do want to go back and check out what it is that we're doing, and I don't do a lot of live chat during the stream because we kind of got to get in and get out and I've got to get to work, but I do take down the names of everybody who chats in the live chat, and everybody written down on the page gets a special thank you at the end of the week that's coming up in a couple days here. So if you want to hear your name and get that little endorphin boost at the end of the Friday show, make sure you get at least one message in. All right, let's get started. Starting with the Dow. The Dow was up again yesterday, 316.32, and it does look like that's turning itself back down, especially given the fact that we just found out that the national debt has reached $31 trillion, plus the fact that gas is going up right now. It's getting harder for people to go out and start businesses. Stagflation is coming here, and I do think people recognize this. I think they got a little bit of good data coming out of September, but it wasn't enough, and there is a lot of anticipation right now, even with CNN coming out and saying that we might be heading into a recession, that we might get to have the conversation of, oh, what do investors do if we're officially in a recession, or if they actually call it as a recession, which we actually might have 2 more quarters of shrinkage, and yet they're not going to say it's officially a recession until, oh, we've got Kevin McCarthy in. He's the Speaker of the House. We can punch him around. We can beat him around. Or Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. Which right now, after the polls we looked at yesterday, I do anticipate both of those gentlemen becoming leadership in Congress. That's a thought that scares the hell out of me, but I do anticipate that being the case. But we will see what happens with that and where that goes. Looking at your Bitcoin, that's also had a wild ride. It's above the 20,000 mark again, but just barely. Sitting right now, well, let's get a refresh because this is probably 30 minutes ago. Okay, sitting right now at $20,051 and 60 US cents. That is a $293.50 drop on the day, which means it got almost up to $23.50. But if you pull out in the 5-day, since we've seen a significant rise in here, it looks like yesterday was a significant rising day for the Bitcoin, which tells me that some people are getting a little bit more confident in the markets. Maybe some people are going out and either buying it as a gift for somebody who actually wants to get some Bitcoin, a kid or something who wants to invest in school and heard on the news somewhere that that's the actual way to do so. I think that there are people out there that are misguided enough to do that. Sure. But it does look like people might have some disposable income to go throw into something like this. Either that or they're looking at the US dollar and saying, I don't want to be attached to that, but we will see what happens with that as well. On the gas front, looking at Madison, Wisconsin, we are not having good news. The Amoco on the Isthmus is actually holding very steady, but I don't know how much traffic that actually gets. I'm trying to picture where that is, and I don't see getting a lot of traffic, but as we pan out from there, we see the Quick Trip that was at 408 yesterday is now at 416. The Quick Trip that was at 404 yesterday is now at 410. The Quick Trip on the edge of town is still at 389 miraculously, and we're still seeing 420s out on the far west side. So that's what our gas is doing. Locally around here, your gas prices may be different, but it does look like nationally, and we'll be talking about Karine Jean-Pierre in just a moment, they are creeping up. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Let's grab one from IBD. Let's see what's happening on the markets. And then I actually do have 2 others for finance before we get in and talk about the main news of the day. From Investors Business Daily. Dow futures fall after market rally on Fed hopes Musk Twitter saga isn't over yet. From Ed Carson. Dow futures fell early Wednesday along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, with Treasury yields and the dollar moving higher. OPEC Plus is expected to announce a larger production cut at today's meeting. By the way, that is a larger production cut going into heating season, where your vehicles typically get less gas mileage, number one. Number two, they start pushing and pumping in the biofuels, if you're in a biofuel state, so do keep that in mind as we get to the winter. And everybody needs heating oil, so this is going to be fun. The market rally attempt continued Tuesday as Treasury yields and the dollar retreated amid hopes that the Federal Reserve could slow rate hikes. Twitter skyrocketed as CEO Elon Musk agreed to go ahead with a $44 billion Twitter takeover. But the Musk-Twitter saga isn't quite over. The major indices are moving higher but haven't retaken any key levels or confirmed the new rally attempt yet. Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon all made strong gains, but only Microsoft closed above its 21-day moving average. Still, leading stocks are offering reasons to tiptoe into the market, or at least get ready. Arista Networks, Enphase Energy, Palo City, On Semiconductor, and Devon Energy are all at or approaching early buy points. If the market keeps gaining momentum, these stocks should be actionable. All have relative strength lines at or near highs. Paylocity stock is on the IBD leaderboard watch list and was Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. Microsoft and Google are on the IBD long-term leaders list. Enphase, On Semiconductor, and Devon Energy are on the IBD 50. Enphase, On Semi, and Arista Networks are on the IBD Big Cap 20. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.8 versus fair value. The S&P fell 0.9 and the Nasdaq fell 0.85. The 10-year yield rose 8 points to 3.7. The dollar also moved higher after pulling back over the last several days. The dollar also rebounded in large part on those higher yields. The pound fell as Prime Minister Truss says she'll continue to push for tax cuts. At a Conservative Party conference, her budget plan spurred a run on the pound and British debt in late September, spurring the Bank of England to resume bond buys and Truss to back down on some of the tax cuts. New Zealand's central bank raised its key rate by 50 points overnight after Australia hiked rates by just a quarter earlier in the day. Crude oil futures were little changed on Wednesday after strong gains in the prior two sessions on expectations of OPEC Plus production and quota cut. OPEC Plus, which includes OPEC and allies such as Russia, are meeting this morning to discuss the size of a likely cut. There were reports that OPEC could cut output quotas by roughly 1.8 million barrels per day. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate to actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming off the markets, but I want to talk about the debt. And I think a lot of you guys do too. Now I want to remind everybody that I was a debt hawk even under the Trump years. Very much so. I know a lot of people who are going to, because you're going to see a lot of them, especially if you're over on Twitter and other social media, you're going to see a lot of people try to gaslight you and say, oh, you were just fine with the debt when Trump was running it up, and now, because it's Biden, you hate the debt. No, I am actually on record talking about the national debt under the Trump years too, because it was a problem. I cut up my stimulus check, my first one, which they did wind up reissuing after the fact. But I cut up my first stimulus check because I didn't want to contribute to the national debt that was skyrocketing. And I knew that nobody else could have that same foresight off of this. In fact, the government was going to force you to take it no matter what. But I do think that if a mass majority of us had cut them up, we might not actually be in the situation that we're in. But, you know, it's humanity. It's what we do. But we are here right now. The U.S. starts fiscal year with a record $31 trillion in debt. From Fatima Hussein. The nation's gross national debt has surpassed $31 trillion, according to a U.S. Treasury report released Tuesday that logs America's daily finances. Edging closer to a statutory ceiling of roughly $31.4 trillion, an artificial cap Congress placed on the U.S. government's ability to borrow, the debt numbers hit an already tenuous economy facing high inflation, rising interest rates, and a strong U.S. dollar. I don't know what U.S. dollar you're seeing that's strong, but... And while the president has touted his admin's deficit reduction efforts this year, and recently signed the so-called Inflation Production Act, which attempts to tame a 40-year high price... No, it doesn't. I read the thing cover to cover. It does not at all attempt to tame the 40-year high prices. Caused by a variety of economic factors, economists say the latest debt numbers are a cause for concern. Owen Zidar, a Princeton economist, said rising interest rates will exacerbate the nation's growing debt issues and make the debt itself more costly. The Federal Reserve has raised rates several times this year in an effort to combat inflation. Zadar said the debt should encourage us to consider some tax policies that almost passed through the legislative process, but didn't get enough support, like imposing higher taxes on the wealthy and closing the carried interest loophole, which allows money managers to treat their income as capital gains. I think the point here is that if you were worried about the debt before, you should be. And if you're worried if you weren't before, you should be, and if you were worried before, you should be even more worried, Zadar said. The CBO earlier this year released a report on America's debt load, warning its 30-year outlook that, if unaddressed, the debt will soon spiral upwards to new highs that could ultimately imperil the U.S. economy, which is already imperiled. In its August mid-session review, the admin forecasted that this year's budget deficit would be nearly $400 billion lower than its estimated back in March, due to in part to stronger than expected revenues, reduced spending, and an economy that has recovered all the jobs it lost during the multi-year pandemic. That is bull crap, and you know it. In full, this year's deficit will decline by $1.7 trillion Hong Kong, representing the single largest decline of the federal deficit in American history, the Office of Management and Budget said in August. Maya Beginias, president of the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, said in an emailed statement on Tuesday, "This is a new record no one should be proud of." That's fair. I like that. In the past 18 months, we've witnessed inflation rise to a 40-year high, interest rates climbing, in part to combat this inflation, and several budget-busting pieces of legislation and executive actions, Beginias said, were addicted to debt. A representative from the Treasury Department was not immediately available for comment. So, there you go, $31 trillion. That's a bunch of money that we are probably never going to pay back. I would sure love to see somebody who has the balls to come back out and say, yeah, we can have a tax cut, but we're also going to cut the spending. We got half of that under the previous administration. But there was no spending cut. And in fact, on this point, we're getting a tax raise. And the spending has already been blown out, which is, by the way, where they're getting their deficit cut from. They keep telling you, hey, I cut the deficit by historic lows, but they never tell you how, especially considering the fact that they've spent into oblivion for this entire fiscal year and the fiscal year before. Guess what? You're in for a big surprise come tax time. I hate to tell you this. All right. I guess we'll pass over this one because it'll probably be a lot of the same information as the other one. Let's grab one on the gas prices, and then we'll get into the main news of the day. Token University hire grilled as gas prices start to surge again. It's a lot more nuanced than that. With video, of course, and who is it? Who is it always? Peter Doocy, the Jim Acosta of Fox News. Let's listen.
You've said the president was responsible for gas prices coming down. Is the president responsible for gas prices going up?
So it's a lot more nuance than that, right? Peter, you know this. There have been global challenges that we have all dealt with. When I say all, meaning other countries as well have dealt with since the pandemic. There's been pandemic and there's been Putin's war. And Putin's war has increase gas prices at the pump. We have seen that over the past several months. And what the president was able to do, he took some historic steps when you think about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and making sure that we were able to do everything that we can to bring that cost down for American families, give them a little bit more of a breathing room. And we saw that. We saw that every day this summer, saving American families over $1 per gallon. And so that is what the president's going to continue to stay focused on, our American consumers. How do we continue to keep prices down? That's why we did the Inflation Reduction Act. That's why we talk about the CHIPS Act. All of these things are going to help Americans here in this country.
Ducey then highlighted gas prices in California being over $6 a gallon and Nevada and Oregon, seeing both gas prices rise to over $5. Who can afford that?
And there are consumers now in California paying $6.41 a gallon for gas. Nevada, $5.51, Oregon, $5.46. Who can afford that?
And we understand that. That's why the president worked so hard the past several months to make sure that he did everything we can to bring gas prices down. We have seen fastest. I know you're pulling out a couple of areas across the country, and I get that, and we understand that there's more work to do. We have never said we were done here. We have always been very clear that there is more work to do, but we have seen, the reality is we have seen the fastest decline in gasoline prices in over a decade. That's because of what this president has done. And again, prices going down by more than $1 per gallon. And these are real savings. You're talking about $100 per month in savings for an average family with 2 cars.
Yeah, you had to pay $300 more a month with 2 cars, but hey, we brought it back $100 again, so just love us, you peasants. Stop complaining. And I know it's an old trope at this point, because it's been happening all year, and the entire year before, by the way, too. It's an ancient trope, but really, it's funny to sit there and watch. The massive ability for the Biden admin to be fully responsible when gas prices come down, but not at all at fault when they go back up. Is there more? Nope, I think that's it. Oh, yeah, there is more. Some more Saudi Arabia.
When the president went to Saudi Arabia, he said, I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. What happened?
So I want to be very clear, and we have said that, his trip to the Middle East was not about oil. It was about America's position in the Middle East and consultation with 12 leaders from across the region on a range of issues similar to his summits in Asia or the Americas, and later this year with African leaders. The president's trip was crucial. It was critical to U.S. national security, a more peaceful, integrated region, and for global security. And there were plenty of examples that we laid out to all of you as of why this trip was so important. But aside from that, the president took action. As I just mentioned, he took action these past several months, and every day in this summer, you saw prices tick down at the pump. But we didn't just stop there. We saw legislative actions, historic actions that the president took to make sure that we're continuing to create jobs in America. We're continuing to lower prices. So there are multiple actions that this president has taken.
So there you have it. The president's taken multiple actions, but don't blame him when everything goes back up. Just accept that you have to spend more, you peasants. Or go buy an electric vehicle, you peasants. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later, too, when we talk about Biden. But that's it for finance. Let's talk about the main news. And to start with, what we found out as we were going through Twitter trending yesterday. Throw those F's up in the chat, because Loretta Lynn, the coal miner's daughter and country queen, passes away. Coming to us from the Associated Press, Kristen M. Hall writes, Loretta Lynn, the Kentucky coal miner's daughter, whose frank songs about life and love as a woman in Appalachia pulled her out of poverty and made her a pillar of country music, has died. She was 90. In a statement provided to the Associated Press, Lynn's family said that she died Tuesday at her home in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. Our precious mom, Loretta Lynn, passed away peacefully this morning, October 4th, in her sleep, at home in her beloved ranch in Hurricane Mills, the family said in a statement. They asked for privacy as they grieve and said a memorial will be announced later. Lynn already had 4 children before launching her career in the early 60s, and her songs reflected her pride in her Kentucky background. As a songwriter, she crafted a persona of defiantly tough women, a contrast to the stereotypical image of most female country singers. The Country Music Hall of Famer wrote fearlessly about sex, love, and cheating husbands, divorce, and birth control, and sometimes got in trouble with radio programmers for material from which even rock performers once shied away from. Her biggest hits came from the 60s and 70s, including Coal Miner's Daughter, You Ain't Woman Enough, The Pill, Don't Come Home a-Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind, Rated X, and You're Looking at Country. She was known for appearing in floor-length, wide gowns with elaborate embroidery or rhinestones, many created by her longtime personal assistant and designer, Tim Cobb. Her honesty and unique place in country music was rewarded. She was the first woman ever named Entertainer of the Year at the genre's 2 major awards shows, first by the Country Music Association in '72, and then by the Academy of Country Music 3 years later. It was what I wanted to hear, and what I knew other women wanted to hear too, Lynn told the AP in 2016. I didn't write for the men, I wrote for us women, and the men loved it too. In '69, she released her autobiography, Coal Miner's Daughter, which helped her reach her widest audience yet. We were poor, but we had love. That's the one thing Daddy made sure of. He shoveled coal to make a poor man's dollar, she sang. Coal Miner's Daughter, also the title of her '76 book, was made into an '80 movie of the same name. Sissy Spacek's portrayal of Lynn. Really? Sissy Spacek? Wow. I didn't know that Sissy Spacek was had done something like that. Her portrayal of Lynn won her an Academy Award, and the film was also nominated for Best Picture. Long after her commercial peak, Lynn won 2 Grammys in '05 for her album, Van Lear Rose, which featured 13 songs she wrote, including Portland, Oregon, about a drunken one-night stand. Van Lear Rose was a collaboration with rocker Jack White, who produced the album and played the guitar parts. Wow, that's, again, I'd never heard of that album. Born Loretta Webb, the second of 8 children, she claimed her birthplace was Butcher Holler near the coal mining company town of Van Lear in the mountains of East Kentucky. There really wasn't a Butcher Holler, however. She later told reporters she made up the name for purposes of the song based on the names of families that lived there. Her daddy played the banjo, her mama played the guitar, and she grew up on the songs of the Carter family. I was thinking when I was born, I think she told the AP in 2016, Daddy used to come out on the porch where I would be singing and rocking the babies to sleep. He'd say, Loretta, shut that big mouth, people over this holler can hear you. And I said, Daddy, what difference does it make? They're all my cousins. Nice. She wrote in her autobiography that she was 13 when she got married to Oliver Mooney Lynn, but the Associated Press later discovered state records showed she was 15. Tommy Lee Jones played Mooney Lynn in the biopic. Interesting. So, I guess, and for me, with Loretta Lynn, I knew mostly about her because of collaborations with Conway Twitty. My parents enjoyed that kind of music. They said that they hated it when they were growing up, but they gained an enjoyment for it when they were older. So, it's interesting to see. It's definitely a hit to music, but again, as I said yesterday, I didn't even know she was still alive. So, that is what we see coming out of that, and fare thee well, Loretta Lynn. All right. Now, let's get into the political news. From CBS, rare footage shows Russia moving equipment belonging to a nuclear weapons unit. From Haley Ott. A video shared online of a train in Russia carrying equipment belonging to a Russian military unit that handles nuclear weapons should be taken as a message to the West, a military analyst said. Yeah, please be afraid. We might be going to war. They might nuke us all. The video, which the U.S. official told CBS News could not be independently confirmed, shows an armored personnel carrier with a cannon attached, as well as another vehicle belonging to the unit, being transported on the train, the analyst said. Such videos are never released by chance. I'm 100% sure there was a purpose behind posting or releasing such a video. Konrad Muzika, an aerospace and defense consultant focused on Russia and Belarus, told CBS News. Muzika said it was highly unusual to see a video of that particular Russian unit, the 12th Main Directorate of the Russian Ministry of Defense, on the internet. Konrad Muzika tweets out, "Why the 12th GUMO? It's not about trucks, as it was mentioned in The Guardian. According to our knowledge and military analysts we work with, this Vistral vehicle with a 30mm turret is used solely as protection for the 12th GUMO. And yeah, they can see the turrets and the cannons on there. Quote tweeting himself saying, "This another train with military equipment is actually carrying a kit belonging to the 12th Main Directorate of the Russian Ministry of Defense. The director is responsible for nuclear munitions, their storage, maintenance, transport, and issuance to units." There's also this vehicle that we have seen in other 12th GUMO related movements. Combined, these two pieces of info add the context to Putin's recent nuclear threats, and this video, trust me, such videos are never published by accident, and there you go. With no video, of course, it's just a still. The video of the train is a very good example of Russian strategy of trying to increase pressure on the West and signal its, maybe not necessarily readiness, but willingness to escalate the situation, Muzika said. The video surfaced amid reports which CBS has been unable to independently verify that the US-led NATO military alliance had warned its member nations that Russia could be preparing to test its nuclear-capable Poseidon torpedo. The weapon was reportedly on a Russian military submarine headed towards the Arctic. There were also reports in the British press, which Muzika said were incorrect, that the train featured in the online video was headed towards Russia's border with Ukraine. Going forward, we're going to see more reports about Russian activities that relate to nuclear weapons, because of course we are, that relate to drills of units which can potentially be carrying nuclear warheads, Muzika said. Russia will try to increase the pressure on the West, and it will try to indicate to the world that from its point of view, the nuclear option is being considered, but I still think that to a large extent it's a bluff. I'm actually with Muzika on this one. I don't think that they're out there ready to go and launch something yet. I don't even know if there's a nuclear weapon on this train, or nuclear materials, or the materials for anything. Coming from the situation where this video was accidentally released of this train mobilizing, I mean, they could be running this train just through the yard at this point. To come back out and say something and take a video of it and leak it to the internet. And now people start writing articles like this. There are talks of the Poseidon submarine. Yes, I do understand that. But I'm not ready to go back in and say, let's preemptively nuke Moscow just yet. But I know a lot of people are. I did know that, by the way. Muzika says that by declaring recently that all options are on the table, the Russian leader has put himself in a position where he cannot really back down right now, and then they will try to test Western resolve, and they will try to influence Western and Ukrainian decision-making. Fears that Russia could launch a tactical or small-scale nuclear strike have mounted since Putin issued his warning last week that he would defend Russian territory, including parts of Ukraine he unilaterally declared dominion over this week, by all means at our disposal. Okay, there's that, but something you have to understand is he's not going to go back and nuke those areas, because especially if we take the numbers at their words, and nobody's been able to provide me a counter of evidence yet off of this, that means that 99% of the people in there are willing Russian citizens because they willingly voted to go to be part of Russia, which means that he'd be nuking his own citizens. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky appeared to take the threat seriously, telling CBS Face the Nation on Sunday, "Maybe yesterday it was bluff, now it could be reality." Under his breath, Zelensky then said, "So please send me much more money. We need more money. I promise. Fully clean, fully launder, I send back to you. Afterwards." "He wants to scare whole world. These are first steps of nuclear blackmail," Zelensky said. "I do not think he is bluffing. I think the world is deterring and containing this threat. We need to keep putting pressure on him and not allow him to continue." CBS News senior foreign correspondent Charlie Degata said the exiled mayor of Melitopol, a Ukrainian city currently occupied by Russian forces, whether he believed the Russian leader would resort to nuclear war, as he lashes out in anger over the battlefield losses. "I expect it," Mayor Ivan Fedorov told CBS News. As a former mayor and a member of the Ukrainian government, he also, under his breath, said, "No, please send me more money. I promise very clean when it gets back to you." Justin Crump, a veteran of the British Army and CEO of the intelligence consulting firm Sibylline, told the BBC earlier on Tuesday, however, that Russia was likely stoking concern over a possible nuclear attack, primarily to influence Western decision-making. "I think it's pretty clear that the Russian intent is to keep us nervous, to try to cross a whole spectrum of activities to dislocate Western support for Ukraine," Crump said. "I suspect there's quite a high likelihood of some kind of nuclear test in the Arctic, probably showcasing the new technology. That could well happen this time of year anyway, but of course, anything like that now will be jumped on as proof that Russia's increasing the tension, increasing the ante. It's getting ready to use weapons. These are not things that indicate something is imminent, but there's something being jumped on and extrapolated in this climate of fear. So that's something that we have to be quite aware of." Yeah, this is Cold War stuff all over again. The nuclear arms race, the regular arms race, it's not necessarily a matter of, "Okay, I'm going to come out, I'm going to blow you to Kingdom Come, even though I don't believe in Kingdom Come because I think the only religion you should worship is the state." It's not that, it's more of, "Hey, look what I have. Maybe you should back down. Because I could blow you to Kingdom Come, except I don't believe in Kingdom Come, because I believe all you should worship is the state." So, that's what they have going on with that. Talking about the Poseidon that we just talked about a moment ago from the New York Post, Putin may test underwater nuke 150 times stronger than Hiroshima bomb near Ukrainian border, according to a report. Look, in today's modern technology of fissile material, nuclear energy, and the fact that we've had 80 years to test and refine all this, 150 times stronger than Hiroshima is really not that high of a bar to clear. What is Rogan saying? Oh, that was back when it was vote Republican. Oh yeah, that was Aaron Rodgers. I haven't listened to that episode yet. I have it saved. Because in spite of the fact that I don't do NFL anymore because of Roger Goodell, I still enjoy the Packers culture. And I would listen to Aaron Rodgers, even if I won't watch him play football. Because it's really not about Aaron Rodgers, it's about Roger Goodell. Defense officials fear Russian President Vladimir Putin may flex his military power by testing a massive nuclear torpedo called Poseidon, the report said. NATO reportedly issued an intelligence report to its members and allies warning that the Kremlin is planning to test so-called doomsday nuclear torpedo drones, a senior UK defense source told the Times of London on Monday. Poseidon is a long-range undersea nuke designed to hit coastal cities at extremely long range by traveling to targets underwater. Such a test would be carried out near the Ukrainian border in the Black Sea so Putin can prove he is willing to make good on his threat to use all means at our disposal, including WMDs, sources told the newspaper. Oh, here we go, WMDs. This is starting to sound an awful lot like Operation Iraqi Freedom. She's Meme Streets, by the way, Randy. And yeah, she was in the voice chat that one time. Recent reports estimate the weapon is capable of carrying 2 megaton warhead, more than 150 times the power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in '45, and decidedly larger than any tactical nuclear warhead. Powered by a nuclear reactor nearly 80 feet long, Poseidon is essentially an uncrewed nuclear submarine with a warhead. And if that doesn't terrify you, it's unclear what stage of development the weapon is currently in, and if an operational nuclear prototype could be pressed into service. At an estimated 100 tons, it's too large to be launched by all but the newest Russian submarine designs. A Western diplomat told Reuters on Tuesday that NATO had not issued any warnings related to the Poseidon, and the Kremlin denied the report as nuclear rhetoric. So, just to remind you of what this means, they're not using a diesel sub for this, which, by the way, that wouldn't matter too much anyway, because a diesel engine doesn't run on a submarine unless they're surface. They go back, they run it to charge the batteries, and then they go back underwater and shut the thing off. Submarines are electric, always have been. It's just a matter of how you generate the electricity. I wondered about that for a long time, too, by the way. Like, how do you run a diesel engine underwater with a limited air supply? And then, yeah, I learned probably about 7 years ago that no, you don't run it underwater at all. But consider that for just a second. You've got an 80-foot long submarine, which I believe is regular size of a submarine, with a warhead on the front that's unmanned, and in the back is more fissile material because it's also running a nuclear generator to get where it has to go. A Western diplomat told Reuters Tuesday that NATO had not issued any warnings related to the Poseidon, and Kremlin denied the report as nuclear rhetoric from the West. Which is, by the way, always a possibility. So, there's a thought that that's going to be tested. From The Hill, how the U.S. might respond to a Russian nuclear attack in the Ukraine. Well, first they're going to cry. Then they're going to pull Biden into a bunker. And pull a lot of Congress into another bunker. And then they'll probably launch off a bunch of nuclear weapons. As we sit and watch the destruction and our country get decimated because every country in the world that's against us will start launching them back. From Ellen Mitchell. As concerns grow over Russian President Vladimir Putin's nuclear saber rattling amid continued losses in Ukraine, what a U.S. response would look like has become an increasingly urgent question. U.S. officials since the start of Russia's attack on Ukraine have stressed there are plans being developed to counter a range of moves by Moscow, but kept specifics under wraps. Oh, I thought this was a quote, so I was like, okay, is this Biden? Because I thought it said at the beginning, what my administration, but it says while the administration. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, where's the quote that confirms this is Biden? But it's not. It's still The Hill. While the admin says there are no signs the Kremlin has made moves towards nuclear strike, and that Washington has not changed its own nuclear position, experts say the potential U.S. option could turn into a very real scenario given Russia's floundering military campaign and an increasingly frustrated Putin. Mark Kancian, a former Pentagon official turned defense expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said a U.S. response to a major Russian attack would be twofold: one military and one diplomatic. If the Ukrainians kept fighting, we would continue our flow of aid, and we'd probably take the gloves off in terms of weapons provided to Kiev, he told The Hill. At the top of Ukraine's wish list is the Army Tactical Missile System, a surface-to-surface missile that can travel 4 times further than anything Kiev has now in its fight against Russia. The embattled country has pressed the U.S. for the system for months, but Washington's been hesitant to provide it, over fears it could escalate the conflict. You know, like sending them weapons, period, has escalated the conflict. However, should Moscow use a tactical nuke on Ukrainian troops or civilians, or even detonate such a device away from populated areas, Kancian predicted the admin would finally allow Kiev to have the ATACMS or anything else they wanted to go after Russian targets, at which point Kiev would become a large crater. And probably so would DC. I hate to tell you. On the diplomatic sides of things, meanwhile, Russia's use of nuclear weapons could very well prompt other countries, such as India, China, and Turkey, the latter a NATO ally, to put pressure on Putin economically, according to Kancian. A nuclear strike, really, I think, would put them under a lot of pressure to go along with the sanctions and take a tougher line towards Russia, so Russia would lose those lifelines that they've been clinging to and nurturing, he said. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said last week that there would be catastrophic consequences should Moscow deploy nuclear weapons, and said a more specific ultimatum had been delivered to Moscow privately. President Biden has said since the start of the war that the U.S. troops will not be sent to Ukraine, and experts warn that a nuclear response to nuclear attack could quickly escalate into a nuclear world war. You know, like October 13th, 2077. Retired General David Petraeus offered a prediction on how the U.S. would respond to a Russian nuclear attack on Sunday, though he noted that he had deliberately avoided speaking with Sullivan about it. I mean, just to give you a hypothetical, we would respond by leading a collective effort, that would take out every Russian conventional force that we can see and identify on the battlefield in Ukraine and also in Crimea, and every ship in the Black Sea, he said. Here's my take on this. Now, North Korea explicitly said, "Oh, we have nukes. We go nuke US." But what we're seeing right now, coming out of the Russian side of things, sounds an awful lot like WMDs. I don't remember Putin, and I look at this kind of stuff every day, I don't remember Putin ever saying, "I use nuclear weapons. I send nuclear weapons to you. I put them out there. I kill everything in my path." When he said all things are on the table. Now, there may have been a veiled undertone of nuclear weapons into that. I don't deny the reality that that could happen. To deny that reality would be a stupid thing. But what I do understand the fact right now is there, as far as I know, has never been an official statement from Russia that says, "You back out of Ukraine or I use nuclear weapons." Which tells me a lot of this is amped up rhetoric to try to get more of the US people on the side of bumbling Joe Biden. Because he might use nuclear weapons on his own people, or weapons of mass destruction. I half expect to hear the words chemical weapons in the next few days. Coming from people, and let's not face it, I mean, the people who voted for Biden There was a time when they protested against war, back when it was a Republican that was leading the war, but they also should probably be reminded that Biden voted for every action in the Middle East. He voted yes on every single action in the Middle East while he was in the Senate. Whether it was Clinton doing it, whether it was Bush 1 doing it, whether it was Bush 2 doing it, whether it was, well, he didn't have the vote when he was Obama because he was the vice president at the time, but yeah, he's never seen a military action that he doesn't like. And now all these little Biden babies want you to be anti-Russia so we can dehumanize them. And we can justify using a nuclear weapon on Moscow. This is Baghdad all over again. From NBC on the other side of Russia, as the world eyes Putin's nuclear threats, which I don't remember him ever saying, Kim launches his own escalation with a missile over Japan. Now see, this crazy bastard actually is making threats explicitly and firing off the rocket to go with it. And what are we talking about in the video feed? Mar-a-Lago! I do have stuff about Mar-a-Lago on the stack. I anticipate we're not going to get to it. Mostly because given everything else that's going on in the world right now, I don't think Mar-a-Lago matters. Well, I didn't think it mattered to begin with, but... From Alexander Smith, with the world anxiously watching the mounting nuclear threats from Moscow, another pariah on the world stage has just reminded everyone that it too has the means to cause mass destruction. North Korea launched a ballistic missile over Japan onto the sea Tuesday. It flew further than any previous test by the North, prompting cell phone alerts for Japanese residents to evacuate to shelters and halting commuter-packed trains in the country's north until it was clear that the missile had passed. Yes, for the first time in history, the trains in Japan did not run on time, at least in northern Japan. Anthony Blinken condemned what he said was a reckless and dangerous move that posed an unacceptable threat to the Japanese public. In recent days, U.S. officials have also been forced to respond to threats from Vladimir Putin and a growing concern that he may follow up with his actions as his military is forced to retreat in Ukraine while unease grows at home. So, should we be worried about the double nuclear threat from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and the Kremlin? It's often just as difficult to gauge the opaque intentions of Kim as those of Putin, but some experts see a link here. Global attention has understandably been focused recently on Russia's war in Ukraine, so North Korea wants to remind the world that it exists. Robert Ward, a Tokyo-based senior fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies think tank. John Nilsson Wright, a senior research fellow at the British think tank Chatham House, agreed. It's an effort to say that we're here, we want to be renewed dialogue, he said. It's an attention grab. That's possible, but also keep in mind he's actually launched a missile. This was the latest of some 24 North Korean tests this year, the most since Kim took over the reclusive regime more than a decade ago. Officially, North Korea says it's a response to military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea, with whom it has technically been at war with since the 50s. Pyongyang sees the drills as planning for an invasion. By appearing to ramp up its weapons tests this year, North Korea also likely wants to rekindle talks with the U.S. and its regional allies, an attempt to force the concessions to help its isolated, heavily sanctioned economy. And then when Joe gets over there, Kim will come up and say, "Oh, no. Screw you, get rid of this old guy. Bring back Loudmouth with Hot Wife." So that's happening. And in response from CNN, U.S. and South Korea test fire missiles in continued response after North Korea launch. From Yunjung Seo, Caitlin Hu, Eric Chuang, and Brad Lendon, not Brandon. The U.S. and South Korea launched 4 missiles off the east coast of the Korean Peninsula on Wednesday morning local time, according to the South Korea Joint Chief of Staff. The test was the Allies' second exercise in under 24 hours, following a provocative test launch on Tuesday morning by neighboring North Korea, which fired a ballistic missile without warning over Japan in a significant escalation of its own weapons testing program. The U.S. and South Korea initially responded to the provocation with a precision bombing exercise on Tuesday that involved South Korean F-15K fighter jet firing 2 air-to-air service munitions at a virtual target in a firing range west of the Korean Peninsula, per the South Korean Joint Chiefs. The Allies typically respond to missile tests by North Korea with military exercises. Wednesday's launch, including 4 ATACMS missiles, the statement by South Korea Joint Chiefs said, also known as Army Tactical Missile Systems, such weapons are surface-to-surface that can fly around 200 miles. According to Kirby, the National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, the launch was designed to demonstrate that the U.S. and its allies have the military capabilities at the ready to respond to provocations by the North. This is not the first time we've done this in response to provocations by the North. To make sure that we can demonstrate our own capabilities, Kirby told CNN's Pamela Brown on the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer. We want to see the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Kim Jong-un hasn't shown an inclination to move in that direction. Quite frankly, he's moving the opposite direction by continuing to conduct these missile tests, which are violations of Security Council resolutions, he added. But also, what did I tell you last week? When we started to see Mrs. Harris out there with the binoculars. Oh, is that North Korea? No, North Korea is 50 meters away. When Kamala Harris visited North Korea a couple days later, the invasion started. When she visited South Korea to go look at the demilitarized zone, what's happening a few days later? Coincidence? I think not. From the Associated Press, Seoul's reprisal blows up after North Korean missile success. Yes, literally. From Kim Tong-young, a malfunctioning South Korea ballistic missile blew up as it plowed into the ground Wednesday during a live-fire drill with the U.S. that was a reprisal for North Korea's successful launch a day earlier of a weapon that flew over Japan and has the range to strike the territory of Guam. The explosion and subsequent fire panicked and confused residents of the coastal city of Gangneung, who were already uneasy over the increasingly provocative weapons tested by rival North Korea. Their concern that it could be a North Korean attack only grew as the military and government officials provided no explanation about the explosion for hours. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said no injuries were reported from the explosion, which involved a short-range Hyomu-2 missile that crashed inside an Air Force base on the outskirts of the city. A Joint Chiefs of Staff official who spoke on the condition of anonymity during a background briefing said the missile's warhead didn't explode during the crash, and that the fire was caused by burning rocket propellant. But the question is, did it melt steel beams? The official said the missile fell soon after liftoff and that no civilian facilities were affected. Kwon Song-dong, the governing party lawmaker representing Gangneung, wrote on Facebook that the weapon system operated by our blood-like taxpayer money ended up threatening our own people and called for the military to thoroughly investigate the missile failure. He also criticized the military for not issuing a notice about the failure while maintaining media embargo on the joint drills. It was an irresponsible response, Kwan wrote. They don't even have an official press release yet. Yeah, that's usually not a good sign. When you're going back to try to shake your fists at the rest of the world, and your rocket blows up at the launch pad like we're about to look at, that's usually not good for your cause. Yeah, that probably didn't go the way that they wanted it to. Most likely. So that's what's happening in the Korean Peninsula. Let's move back inland to Europe. Something I teased yesterday. Poland demands $1.3 trillion in war damages from Germany. From Monika Sislowska. And Poland probably wants that money so they can go back and buy natural gas from the U.S. Poland's foreign minister on Monday signed an official note to Germany requesting the payment of about $1.3 trillion in reparations for the damage incurred by occupying Nazi Germans during World War II. I think you're probably about 70 years too late for that. Zbigniew Rau says the note will be handed to Germany's foreign ministry. The signing comes on the eve of Rau's meeting with Warsaw in German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who will attend a security conference. Rau said the note expresses his view that the two sides should take action without delay to address the effects of Germany's 1939 to 1945 occupation in a lasting and complex, legally binding way, as well as material way. He said that would include German reparations as well as solving the issue of looted artwork, archives, bank deposits. He said Berlin should make efforts to inform German society about the true picture of the war and its disastrous effects on Poland. Warsaw says the payment of reparations would strengthen bilateral relations through truth and justice and would close painful chapters from the past. Germany says the matter was closed decades ago. Baerbock said in Berlin before departing Poland that the two European neighbors and partners have a responsibility to preserve the trust we have built together over the past 30 years. Baerbock stressed that this includes coming to terms and remembering the immeasurable suffering that Germany brought upon the people of Poland. So, yeah, you're, again, probably about 70 years too late for that. The time to talk about that was probably in the 50s. It's really hard to make the claim that nobody was alive and nobody that's alive today enslaved a black person when you've got the white people over in Eastern Europe saying, yes, give us reparations for something else that happened when nobody that's alive now was still alive. Although there actually may still be some people alive from World War II. I know that number's fading and dwindling quickly. And as expected, Germany coming back saying, screw off. Germany says issue of World War II reparations for Poland is closed. from Tristan Fielder. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said Tuesday the topic of reparations for the wartime occupation of Poland is closed from the perspective of the German government. Speaking in Warsaw at a joint press conference with her Polish counterpart, Zbigniew Rau, Baerbock said, however, that Germany stands by its historical responsibilities without ifs, ands, buts. A day earlier, Rau formally claimed that Poland's ruling Nationalist Law and Justice Party had pushed for years. He signed the diplomatic note to Berlin in order to initiate a permanent, comprehensive, and final legal and material settlement of the consequences of the German aggression and occupation from 1939 to 1945. So, that's pretty much all that we have here. Poland says, give me money. And Germany said, no. Kind of reminds me of that scene in Napoleon Dynamite, except that I don't think Poland's going to go back and kick Germany in the pocket. Napoleon, give me your tots. No, go get your own. Let's talk Biden. Bring this back over to our side of the pond. Greg Price tweets out a quote from Biden. Let's listen to him instead of listening to Greg Price.
And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home politically. And so we came here for a long time, both for business and pleasure, since you're part of the Third Circuit Court. And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home politically.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. The Bidens are full out cornbread, white trash, Delaware trash, from Scranton trash, and just one of them happened to get a government job and make buku billions of dollars more than he could have made on a senator and then vice president's salary. From the Daily Wire. Get in, loser! Critics drag Joe Biden for tone-deaf play on Mean Girls meme. From Virginia Kruta. President Biden caught some serious blowback for what many criticize as a tone-deaf play on a meme from the Tina Fey comedy Mean Girls, which, by the way, I kind of enjoy. And I'm man enough to admit that. Do your worst. The joke stems from a scene in the film in which the titular Mean Girls, played by Rachel McAdams, and Lacey Chabert pull up next to the unsuspecting new girl, played by Lindsay Lohan. The tagline, McAdams shouts, "Get in, loser, we're going shopping." Which I think we can watch the video off of this, and I don't think this will screw with the copyright thing, but we'll see. I thought Amanda Seyfried is in this scene too. Let's watch. I guess we'll know in a second, won't we?
Get in, loser, we're going shopping.
Oh, I guess it doesn't show. On Monday, October 3rd, which also happens to be Mean Girls Day. On October 3rd. He asked me what day it was. Hey, what day is it? It's October 3rd. President Biden posted a photo of himself in his 1967 Corvette convertible and included the caption, "Get in, folks! We're building a better America!" But critics weren't impressed and immediately took to Twitter to voice their displeasure. Anytime a politician uses the word folks, I pat my back pocket to make sure I still have my wallet. Revenge ROTN Scoundrel, at ROTN Scoundrel, tweeted in response. I don't know who that is. Let's find out. HL Schisselfritz. I don't know who that is either. I think he took his wallet. The honest question, Is that electric? John Jackson asked, referencing the Biden admin's repeated pushes to get more Americans into electric vehicles. I don't know, live chat. Do you think that's electric? You think that's an EV right there? We can't afford groceries, gas, and goods, and yet you post a picture of yourself in an expensive gas-powered vehicle, claiming you're doing a good job. You are completely out of touch with Americans. You're hypocritical ass. Retired Nikita M. made it clear that she was not a fan. Even a few who claim to lean left voiced their complaints, like at Biden tracking Biden from the left, who tweeted, hasn't increased the minimum wage, hasn't legalized marijuana, hasn't introduced a public option, held the largest oil and gas sale in U.S. history. What's better, America? Former Clinton aide Peter Dow also took a swing at Biden, adding, kids are still in cages, hundreds of thousands are homeless, millions lack health care, tens of millions live paycheck to paycheck, entire cities don't have clean water, their climate energy threatens our existence, but hey. I think the last one we'll read off from this. Maybe we'll look at some of the tweets that did get quoted in this, but the last one we'll read from the quotes comes from Breitbart's Joel Pollack, who says, 14 miles per gallon, the elite make their own rules. Amy, doctor of bitey dogs, says high gas prices, inflation, recession, nuclear threat from Russia, giving Ukraine $60+ billion. I think it's probably closer to $100 billion at this point. Baby formula shortage, violent crime skyrocketing, 2+ million illegals flooding the US, 300 Americans a day dying from fentanyl, and China buying farmland and stealing secrets, with a check on all of them. Senator Melissa Melendez, which I don't know what, California. Yes, everyone get into your expensive antique, and oh boy, by the way, gas-powered convertibles, and don't let anyone tell you you're oblivious to the financial pain the Americans are feeling. I mean, we all love $6 and $7 a gallon gas, right? Says California State Senator Melissa Melendez. Yeah, I can't... Are there PR people just trolling them at this point? It's the same thing with Kamala and the speeches that she goes, where there is a chance that I think that the PR person, the comms director, is just trolling her at this point. Like, no, go out and say this. It'll resonate with the American people, we promise. Speaking of cringe ads, this one. I don't know who sat down and told this woman, hey, talk about abortion in your ad, and while you're doing so, literally give birth. You'll resonate the right message. But this is Katie Darling for Louisiana, who puts this ad out in which she literally gives birth, while talking about the dangers of taking away abortion from people. And I wish I was kidding.
I'm Katie Darling, and I live on a farm in St. Tammany Parish. Our family composts, collects rainwater, and grows our own food. My husband and daughter help take care of the chickens. And there's someone else who's going to be joining us and helping to pitch in with farm life very soon. But these days, I worry about storms that are stronger and more frequent because of climate change, about our kids underperforming public schools, and about Louisiana's new abortion ban, one of the strictest and most severe in the country. We should be putting pregnant women at ease, not putting their lives at risk. I haven't spent my career in Washington. I've worked my way up from bartender to CEO. Now I help nurses organize their complicated health records. Because nurses aren't just heroes, they're saints. Louisiana deserves better than the path we're on. I'm Katie Darling, and I'm running for Congress because I want that better path. For you, for her, and here we go, for him.
That is Katie Darling, who is running in Louisiana 1st. 1st Congressional District. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. That looks like that is all of the coastal area. Doesn't include New Orleans, but it goes right around New Orleans. And yeah, pretty much all that coastal area out to the southeast of the state. Oh, it's Steve Scalise's district, that's why. And it is, according to Ballotopedia, let's see what the... Let's see what the point spread is on that one. Yeah, that's R plus 40. I don't think that this girl's doing anything. The last election... 72.2 versus 25.3. Well, Katie, good luck. I hope you enjoy being a CEO and helping nurses. I really do.
I'm Katie Darling. And
who thought? What staffer looked at this? Did Katie come up with this idea, or did some staffer come up with this? That looked at this and says, we want you to talk about the evils of Republicans taking an abortion away. But in almost the same breath, we want to watch you give birth in an ad. Like, seriously. Who came up with this? I don't get it. All right, speaking of abortion in the news, Miguel Cardona, the Education Secretary, telling you what women need. I'm sorry, men and women, because men can get pregnant too in order to thrive in school and life.
I share your grave concerns about maintaining access to contraception and reproductive health services on our college campuses, and ensuring there's accurate, reliable information for students and for educators. Students need access to healthcare to thrive in school and in life, and that includes reproductive healthcare. Thank you also to Vice President Harris. In August, we met with college leaders grappling with new, sweeping restrictions to their states. Our work together is ongoing. It's clear. The Dobbs ruling has sown fear and confusion on our college campuses. I worry about the children. I share your grave concerns about maintaining access.
That's right. If you want to thrive in school, you have to be able to slaughter your baby. All right, going back to the Corvette thing from the Hill. GOP seizes on Biden gaffes to attack his competence. And what is probably the most tone-deaf headline ever. Oh, he grabbed the railing. Get him a cognitive test. Get him the 25th. Oh, he held a glass of water with both hands. Give him a cognitive test. Get him out of office. He wrote Covfefe. Get him a cognitive test. Get him out of office. That was a constant line of headlines from the mainstream legacy media for 5 years. It was constant. But from the Hill, Republicans are seizing on recent gaffes. from President Biden putting a spotlight on his slip-ups to attack Biden's competency ahead of both the midterms and the 2024 presidential race. The GOP in particular is using a moment last week when Biden asked whether Congresswoman who died in August was in attendance at the event where he was speaking. The RNC included the gaffe in a list of their top Democratic fails from last week, criticizing the White House's refusal to say if Biden would apologize for his remarks as tough to watch. The RNC did not make Biden's age a central part of criticism, but it's implicit and sometimes explicit part of the attacks from various Republicans who see the perceptions of Biden's age and competence as a potential fruitful line of attack. Democrats who themselves are wondering if Biden will stick with his stated intentions of running for re-election at the age of 81 acknowledge they are worried about that the attacks could swing some voters. It's not a great look, one Democrat strategist acknowledged, and we all know it only feeds the criticism of the president and his age. Biden has been really careful not to give the other side easy fodder. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? That's been nothing but easy fodder. Biden was making a gaffe before his age was a political issue. No, he wasn't. We knew he was old and doddering and senile during the Obama years. Maybe not in 08, maybe not in 09. But by 12, we knew something was up, dude. As a presidential candidate in 07, then-Senator Biden apologized after describing then-Senator Barack Obama as the first mainstream African-American presidential candidate who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. As Obama's vice president in 2010, Biden was caught on a hot mic saying the passage of healthcare reform was a... Earmuffs, everybody. Parents with your kids in the car, earmuffs. Big fucking deal. But today's gaffes are being used by Republicans to question Biden's competency given his age. Dude, the guy cannot form a cogent, coherent sentence. When they do doping him up to the eyeballs in whatever CIA drugs they're giving him, he does things like calls for the extermination of his political enemies. That man is not well. If he was having the same problems at age 65, we'd be having the same conversation. If he was having the same problems at age 50, we'd be having the same conversation. He is not well. He is not. But the Hill, ever tone deaf, carrying water for the admin. Some of their strategy. Biden highlights Republican-led abortion restrictions in 100 days since Roe was overturned because they don't have anything else. That's something to pay attention to keep in mind. They have absolutely nothing else at this point. So it's going to be all about make it back about abortion because the economy is going to tank, the housing market's crashing, the fuel prices are going back up, and this war is not going the way that they want it to go. So hey, if we want to hold on to power, let's talk about abortion. From Cheyenne Hashlet. A new Biden admin report on abortion access in the U.S. describes how widely the procedure has been curtailed in the roughly 100 days after Roe was overturned, according to a memo obtained by ABC. The report, compiled by Jen Klain, the head of the admin's interagency task force on abortion access, was one focus of a Tuesday meeting that President Joe Biden, Vice President Harris, and cabinet members convened to discuss the state of the abortion case. The report recapped efforts by Republicans to limit abortions in the wake of the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe in June, a ruling that allowed states to regulate or ban the procedure as they saw fit. At least 15 states have ceased all abortion services. As a result, the report said that close to 30 million women of reproductive age now live in states with bans. Biden warned of similar efforts in Washington. Congressional Republicans are doubling down on the extreme position with a proposal for a national ban, Biden said. Which is a lie, because Lindsey Graham put up a national ban idea and he got laughed out of the Senate. Tuesday's meeting came as White House works to drum up support for Democratic midterm candidates in the political fight to preserve or expand access to abortion and call attention to the ways Republicans have banned or chipped away at the procedure, which polling repeatedly shows is unpopular with voters. Yeah, it's also all you have left at this point. That's it. You have no more. And that's where you start to realize this, that they have absolutely no more. All right, let's talk about Twitter. That I just had to say those words. From the Associated Press, deal back on. Elon Musk gets closer to buying Twitter. From Tom Christner, Matt O'Brien, Randall Chase, and Barbara Ortute. The tumultuous saga of Elon Musk's on-again, off-again purchase of Twitter took a turn towards conclusion on Tuesday, after the mercurial Tesla CEO proposed to buy the company at the originally agreed-on price of $44 billion. Musk made the surprising turnaround not on Twitter, as has been his custom, but in a letter to Twitter that the company disclosed in a filing Tuesday with the SEC. It came less than 2 weeks before a trial between the two parties is scheduled to start in Delaware. In response, Twitter said it intends to close the transaction at $54.20 a share. After receiving the letter from Musk, the company stopped short of saying it's dropping its lawsuit against the billionaire. Experts say that makes sense given the contentious relationship and lack of trust between the two parties. I don't think Twitter will give up its trial date on just Musk's word. It's going to need more certainty about closing, said Andrew Jennings, professor at Brooklyn Law, noting that the company may have also worried about Musk's proposal being a delay tactic. After all, he's already tried to unsuccessfully postpone the trial twice. Trading in Twitter stock, which has been halted for much of the day pending release of the news, resumed trading late Tuesday and soared 22% to close at $52. Musk's proposal is the latest twist in a high-profile saga involving the world's richest man and one of the most influential social media platforms. Much of the drama has played out on Twitter itself, with Musk, who has more than 100 million followers, lamenting that the company was failing to live up to its potential as a platform for free speech and had too many bots. While some logistical and legal hurdles remain, Musk could be in charge of Twitter in a matter of days, however long it takes him and his co-investors to line up the cash, said Ann Lipton, an associate law professor at Tulane University. A letter from Musk's lawyer, dated Monday and disclosed by Twitter in a securities filing, said Musk would close the merger signed in April, provided the Delaware Chancery Court enter an immediate stay of Twitter's lawsuit against him and adjourn the trial, scheduled to start October 17th. Eric Talley, a law professor at Columbia, said he's not surprised by Musk's turnaround, especially ahead of a scheduled deposition of Musk by Twitter attorneys, stating starting Thursday that was not going to be pleasant. On the legal merits, his case didn't look that strong, Talley said. It kind of seemed like a pretty simple buyer's remorse case. Attorneys for Musk did not respond to a request for comment on Tuesday. I don't think he was trying to back out of the deal. I think he was trying to get it for a discount. I know the next paragraph says he's been trying to back out of the deal for months. No, I think that I think he was just trying to get it for a discount because he realized that when 10 to 15% of, and probably more than that, of the bots on the site don't watch commercials and don't buy things, the site's not worth even what the stock investors had to say. But also, the other thing that went with that is now the investors in Twitter are going to make out with the 54.20, but when it didn't look like Elon was going to buy it, they were getting ready to jump ship. They were bailing because the site was not worth what was presented to them. It absolutely wasn't. In some response, because of course somebody had to be salty, CNBC's Dan Nathan says he'll quit Twitter if Trump is allowed to tweet again. I don't need to be there for that. I'm not on Truth Social for a reason. Let's listen.
10 years ago, Facebook, Meta, went public. It had $5 billion in sales. That is what Twitter is expected to have this year. So think about how poorly they've grown that revenue base, how they've monetized those users. Their users have been stuck. They haven't been growing them. And when you think about the margin differential between, let's say, Meta at about 80% gross margin versus Twitter where they are at 60 and not getting better, I mean, this business is going to be just impaired because the management and that plan that the whole team was looking at, the 2023 plan, when this news hit the wires today, that team's blown up. It's gone. You know what I mean? Yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, this is kind of like a dead stick right now.
Are you also saying, as a private company, that it's even worse off? Because they don't have to, this is a company that we're questioning what they're reporting as.
Well, let's say this. If stock-based compensation is a huge part of, like, how these companies, like, incentivize people, this company is being taken out in a manner he's massively overpaying. He's double paying for that. Usually, when you want to buy an asset like this, take it private, you want to retool it, you want to lever it up, you want to bring it out at a higher valuation, and that is the incentive for the new management to come in. That's out the door. That's blown up. So to me, I think the service probably gets worse before it gets better. I don't know how they monetize it better if they're going to be losing users, which I suspect they will, especially if they're going to bring like MAGATown back to the thing. So to me, I don't know. I mean, you guys are snickering, but that's a real issue here.
Well, I mean, the idea of less censorship is clearly one of his principles.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing your Twitter jacket today, so you seem on board.
It's a coincidence, by the way. So let's say they reinstate Donald Trump onto Twitter.
Yeah.
Would you leave the service?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't need to be there for that. I'm not on Truth Social for a reason. And no one other than like QAnon, MAGA conspiracy.
You don't have to follow him at all. You don't have to see anything about Donald Trump or from Donald Trump on Twitter, and that is the beauty of Twitter.
I think we're all. We were talking about in the break. We all use it much less. We don't really engage with it. I don't know how they monetize it. I don't see a lot of ads. I don't do micro-commerce. There's a lot of things that are e-commerce. I'm not doing that on that. So to me, if I don't find it,
lost relevancy in general, though, I think is what a lot of us are saying.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
When it's not a publicly traded company, we're going to be talking about it far less. And I actually think that actually hurts the relevancy within certain verticals also.
So, this guy says that Trump comes back on, he'll be off. He won't use Twitter anymore. Excuse me. So,
10 years ago, Facebook.
I think Ron's right. I think he's full of crap. I think he'll be there, and he'll be the reply guy, too. He'll be right there. First one. First reply every time. Oh, well, you said this back then. So, that's what we have for that. Let's grab some news from Michigan, and I think this piece, which I do want to touch on, I think that'll get saved. I think that'll be thing I like and thing I hate. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet, but I think that's going to be. Which is fine, because I was actually kind of planning for that anyway. I was planning not to get that far in the stack. From the Daily Wire, Whitmer-endorsed candidate loses support from Dems after police reports show he was investigated for alleged school shooting threat. What is wrong with these people? A Michigan Democratic candidate who could have been the youngest lawmaker in Michigan history and was endorsed by Gretchen Whitmer, has lost the support of his party. Michigan House Democrats severed ties this week with 20-year-old Maurice Imhoff of Jackson, Michigan, who's running in a tight race for the seat in the state's House of Representatives. The party's distancing from the young candidate comes after police reports were revealed indicating Imhoff was investigated 3 separate times while in high school for allegedly making school shooting threats and was on probation for assaulting a police officer, according to the Detroit News. The Michigan House Democrat campaign will not be supporting Maurice Imhoff's campaign for the state representative, Michigan House Democratic leader Donna Lisinski said. Lisinski, along with other top Democrats of the state, had recently fundraised with Imhoff, and Whitmer had once called him a passionate problem solver. On Tuesday, however, a spokeswoman for the governor said she was no longer supporting Imhoff's campaign, saying the allegations are serious and concerning, the Detroit News reported. At 15 in December 2016, Imhoff was reportedly investigated by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office after a fellow student showed her parents a screenshot of Snapchat posts from Imhoff. The sheriff's office says the post allegedly indicated he was going to cause trouble at the school and possibly shoot up students inside the school and also shoot himself. Imhoff later admitted to posting the threats, saying that he was upset over a recent breakup among the stresses of the school, but he told authorities he would not have followed through on the threats, according to the police report. Almost 2 years later, Imhoff was investigated again over an allegation that he referenced shooting that was going to take place at Northwest High. In a conversation with his girlfriend told police that she didn't believe Imhoff was serious about the threat, and Imhoff said the entire situation was blown out of proportion. He did admit that his girlfriend asked him if he was going to shoot up the school, and he responded, "Yup," in a Snapchat message the police report showed. The 2018 report added that Imhoff was on probation for assaulting a police officer. In 2019, yet another tip alleging that Imhoff posted on his private story with a gun saying he wanted to shoot people that go to Northwest and Western tomorrow. According to the police report, police did not find the alleged threats on Imhoff's phone, and no charges were filed against him for the 2019 incident. As of Tuesday, Imhoff's Twitter and Instagram accounts have been deleted, and his campaign website made visitors type in a password to gain access. Yep, he's done. The Democratic candidate who ran unopposed on the party's August 2nd primary and is set to face Kathy Schmaltz in November's general election for Michigan's 46th House District. I got this feeling Kathy Schmaltz is about to run unopposed. Is she incumbent? Who's the incumbent in this race? I don't know. District 46. Let's see. There is no incumbent. Well, there is an incumbent, but he's not running. John Riley is the incumbent, a Republican. So it kind of was Kathy Schmaltz's to lose. Let's see, how did it go the last time? Oh, this is in the same district, by the way, where that maniac shot up the school last year. Or brought the gun to school. I don't remember if he actually shot the school, but he brought the gun to school. That was R plus R plus 24 last election through. So, yep. I don't think that he was I don't think he was going real far anyway. All right, I got a pair from the Blaze, and we'll cut it after these two. No, I'm sorry, I got a pair from the Blaze and a tweet, and then we'll cut it after these three. Now, these two, I usually don't do two articles from the same source in a row, but they're a couple days apart, and they're in the same vein, so I wanted to talk about them both. So, reading first from the Blaze. Leading Democrat claims some kids will be beaten to death if public schools disclose to their parents their children are getting gender identity counseling. From Dave Urbanski. We might need this sounder queued up. Sounder queued. because we're probably going to need it for the next couple articles. From Dave Urbanski. The New Hampshire Democratic Party chairman claimed that some kids will be beaten to death or commit suicide if the public schools in the state disclose to their parents that the children are getting gender identity counseling. Ray Buckley made his claim on Twitter Friday while reacting to a comment about the issue, which is a campaign issue in the state. Should the parents have the right to know if their children are receiving gender identity counseling at school, or is Manchester School District right to keep it a secret from moms and dads? The New Hampshire Journal wondered. Conservative commentator Michael Graham replied, "The most interesting part of the story out of New Hampshire politics is that Democrat U.S. Rep. Chris Pappas is unabashedly arguing that children should not have the right to know about the behavior of their own children." With that, Buckley declared, "You're purposely going after children, endangering their lives, mental health, and safety, and it's disgusting. Not all families are the same. Some kids will be kicked out or beaten to death or commit suicide. All to try to get votes for Caroline. Hashtag New Hampshire politics." Graham shot back at Buckley. The chair of the New Hampshire Dems stated clearly, the party's position is that teachers should decide what parents are allowed to know about their own children. Chris Pappas voted Thursday to kill a requirement for schools to inform parents when their kids receive counseling at school.
We're coming for your children.
Yeah, they're coming for your children. Look, the parents should be the be-all, end-all, and the last say and the first say in what happens in your kids' lives. The state should not be raising your children. And it's time that we get back to that. And I appreciate the fact that, and I say this about Fanning all the time, the fact that there is such a push for homeschool at this point. Because we keep seeing stuff like this. We keep seeing things like this. The attempt to indoctrinate the kids that they need to be transsexual, that they need to be gay, lesbian, etc. in schools. But we're not going to tell your parents. Don't worry about it. And I think McLeod said it too. She pointed out the fact that I don't know that it's necessarily the kids that the teachers are worried about getting beaten to death. I think it's the teachers are worried about themselves getting beaten to death at this point. But they're coming for your children, and if that doesn't scare you about them coming for your children, the next one from The Blaze. Pro-trans group in Virginia attempts to crowdsource for outed and in-crisis kids, help them rehome with queer-friendly adult. And if that title worries you, don't worry, it's just as bad as it sounds. From Courtney Wheel. A pro-LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYITLM271RA+- divided sign rights group in Virginia has allegedly begun to crowdsource funding for students who need to have their home leave their home because their parents or guardians do not support their so-called gender identity. What is the project called? You're going to love this. You're going to love this. Late last month, the group known as Pride Liberation Project made the most pronounced statement yet, convincing thousands of Virginia students to participate in orchestrated walkouts to protest the draft of a new state policy that would compel students to use the restrooms and play on sports teams that correspond with their biological sex, and forbid schools from concealing students' preferred names and pronouns from their parents. And do you know what the point of that is? The point of all this?
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. Your children will care about fairness and justice for others.
Man, that meme just keeps on giving. Now, according to a report from the Daily Wire, such walkouts were only part of the PLP's outreach strategy. The group has begun to offer financial assistance and in some cases even alternative housing options for outed and in-crisis students. If it's that bad, get CPS involved. And I do not advocate for CPS lately because I hate CPS, because it's a part of the government. But if it's that bad and the tool is there, you should be getting them involved before you start kidnapping kids. Well, I can't believe the fact that this is actually coming, because what you're describing is conspiracy to commit kidnapping and a felony. The Daily Wire claims to have access to video of a private Zoom call and at least part of the PLP in-house messaging system, both of which seem to indicate the group intends to raise money that it can then allocate for LGBTQIRIMIGIXTBYAIRMPI plus ~sign students individually. We're creating this channel as a way for everyone to understand the mutual aid and support resources the PLP has available for outed and in-crisis students. The user named Arian reportedly posted Hold up. His name is Arian, and that didn't raise questions in a private chat group about trying to get gay kids out of their homes? Reportedly posted back in July in a messaging channel entitled Resources for Outed Students, which means, I'm guessing by the format, they're in Discord. Arian further explained that the group can afford to give such students a couple $100s immediately via Venmo or Zelle. However, he added the group can also create an ActBlue, there it is, the slush fund, fundraising page for individuals so that allies can donate to support them. Such pages in the past have collected thousands, and all the money is yours. No, it's not. It goes to ActBlue, and they allocate it where they see fit. The post claimed likely addressing such hypothetical students themselves. ActBlue is a billion-dollar slush fund. An online fundraising platform for Democrat candidates and causes, and the Daily Wire asserted that PLP user Arian is Arian Rawal, a college-age adult who once worked for the Virginia Democratic politician. Rawal, who reportedly created the PLP Resources channel, also pledged to help the LGBTQIRIMIGIXTBYAITI2 +sign students find emergency housing in an affirming home. In other words, Rawal seems to be offering to separate kids from their parents or legal guardians, which is kidnapping. In the event you needing to leave your home, we can provide you with emergency housing from a supportive, queer-friendly adult. Rawal reportedly wrote. Hang on.
We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them.
I hate everything. I hate everything about this. I really do. The San Francisco Gay Choir put out a song yelling that they're coming for your children. Now, of course, it's supposed to be, we're going to convert them into kind, caring people, but they yell in the song over and over again, they're coming for your children. And again, as I mentioned, this is the meme that keeps on giving. Over and over and over again. All right, and the last one comes out of my state because Tony Evers is continually trying to pull a special session to get a vote to try to overturn the state's 1865 abortion. No, it is 1849. I had it right the first time. I don't know why I tried to correct myself. I had it right the first time. 1849 abortion ban, which I think that the Republicans are going to overturn soon, just not with Evers as the governor. I think they'll do it under Michaels because they'll get enough political pressure and their fragile balance of power will be threatened once the economy is looking good. So I think they're going to cuck on this, but for now, under Evers, they've chosen not to play ball. Scott Bauer of the Associated Press tweets out, the Wisconsin Assembly took about twice as long as the Senate, roughly 25 seconds to convene and then adjourn a special session called by Governor Evers to create a pathway to vote on the state's 1849 abortion ban. Let's look at what that looked like.
The hour of 10 a.m. on Tuesday, October 4th, having arrived, the Assembly is in special session. The chair recognizes the gentleman from 39 Assembly District. Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assembly stand adjourned pursuant to Senate Joint Resolution 1. Question is, shall the Assembly stand adjourned pursuant to Senate Joint Resolution 1? All in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
25 seconds. Hey, go vote on this. No. Okay, bye. All right. And with that, we're out of here for the day. We're done. We're leaving. And they're still coming for your children. But before we head out of here for the day, the last thing that I do on a Wednesday is I talk a little bit about something that restores my faith in humanity or something that I'm thankful for. And, you know, there's so much. I mean, my faith in humanity is dashed daily, constantly, over and over again by doing this. And there's just so much. There's stupid stuff out there that we don't even see. But one of the things that I'm really thankful for is that I live here in Wisconsin, and there are some opportunities out there. Now, I don't want to go into a lot of details right now, but what I can say is it does look like there are going to be some changes in my life address coming up, obviously, because I've been talking about buying a house since before I fixed what was on my credit. In fact, I've been asking for donations to come back and help out to go and get some of that fixed. A lot of you guys helped out a lot in that, by the way. And your subscriptions, by the way, are awesome, and they help out with that too. So if you're on Twitch, hit that subscription button. Your lemons do help. Even though I don't know how to draw them yet, they do help. And I will figure out how to draw them and bring them in and put them into my bank account at some point, because there have been a lot of people who've been really, really, really generous with them as well. But the other opportunities are out there that, you know, because I can't launch as I'm sitting right now, I do still have to go and work in the regular workforce. I would like to change that at some point, and again, that will be helped by viewers like you, but until then, I do have to join the pedestrian workforce, and it does look like that is possibly going to be changing as well. And again, not too many details about this, but some things that I need to look at, and some things that I need to see, and some things that I need to go back and work out. But anything else on details like that, I can't really go into, but it's all looking up right now, in spite of the fact that everything was looking down. And by the way, and I mentioned that the building that I live in sold recently. I'm actually really thankful for that because, well, first off, I was already going down the path to try to fix everything and going aggressively into it because, you know, we had a year where there were inspectors around here all the time and repairs being made and everything. And I was not getting notice when the landlord decided that he wanted to come into my apartment with the old landlord. I was getting no notice. I was just coming in, finding my overhead light on, which I had turned off because I always turn it off, and the door unlocked, and I was not happy about that. So that was kind of pushing me in the direction of already getting ready to get out of here. But then coming and finding out that the building sold last month has also, by the way, that's been my biggest driver, the biggest kick in the ass to get out and change and fix my life and realize that I was not in control of my own life came from that. And then just everything else fell into place. Looking around and realizing that, I need to change things about income and the way I'm doing things there in order to go back and move to the next step. Changing and actually getting out from under this massive amount of credit. And honestly, by the way, that's probably hit my credit scores a lot quicker than I would have thought that it has. I am starting to get a lot of offers right now that the identity theft is gone. I'm starting to get a lot of offers for, hey, open a CD. Hey, open a new savings account. Hey, take a new loan. Get rid of some of your credit card debt. A lot more offers out there than there were before. So there's a lot of stuff going, a lot of stuff changing. It all looks good. I did ask God to not let anybody that I love suffer. I asked very, very kindly for him not to let anybody that I love suffer. And if somebody has to suffer, to let it be me. I am always a little bit worried about that. But I don't want to see anybody that I love or care for suffer. Even anybody I'm tangentially friends with suffer. So if the economy is going to downturn, I've had practice with it. I've lived it before. It sucked, but I've lived it before. A lot of you guys didn't. A lot of you guys had fallback plans or were still living with parents at the time or were doing very well in your lives. I have a practice with it. I don't want to, again. I don't want to eat nothing but canned vegetables and ramen, again. But I will if I have to. If it means that none of my friends has to suffer, has to have problems anymore, I will take that. I will. That's how it's always been. I would much rather be the one to suffer than let's see anybody else suffer. So, with that, we're done. We're going to head out of here for the day. Let's change up the outro music. I don't have to change the scene. I'm already on full camera mode. Live chat. No, I want the music. I want the outro music. There we go. All right, so with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who came and hung out, and everybody who made the live chat chatty. It's always fun, especially when we get to go through and play little clips of songs that probably did not have the intended meaning, or have the meaning that the original writer intended. We're coming for your children. The meme that keeps on giving. We'll be back here tomorrow morning to talk about more news, more headlines. We'll be talking about probably this Scooby-Doo thing, which that'll probably be in thing I like and thing that I hate. Unless something majorly egregious happens in the next 24 hours, that will probably be thing I hate tomorrow. So we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about what's happening on the foreign side. We'll probably talk about I know we'll talk about finance. We'll talk about the economy, the abortion issue, and everything else that's fit to print over here on Contemporary. And remember, news by the common man for the common man. We will see you here tomorrow, bright and early, 7:30 a.m. Central Time. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.